Good morning mga ka-delight. Our daily grace devotion today is entitled, Without Jesus, we cannot. Without us, He will not. Let's read John 15, verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me, you can do nothing. In more than 2 decades of ministry, I have learned this from the Lord. Without Him, we cannot. Without us, He will not. What this simply means is that we need to recognize the fact that if we do not depend on Jesus, there can be no real, long-lasting, and abiding success. Without Him, we cannot. The Bible tells us that unless the Lord builds the house, we labor in vain. That's in Psalm 127:1. Believers who want to experience His success need to recognize this truth and begin to depend on Jesus and Jesus alone. There are some believers who may not articulate it, but in their hearts, they believe that without Jesus, they can still succeed. By believing and acting on this, they fall from the high place of God's grace, His unmerited favor, back into the law, back into trying to merit and deserve success by their own efforts. God's word tells us, for if you are trying to make yourselves right with God by keeping the law, you have been cut off from Christ. You have been fallen away from God's grace or unmerited favor. That's in Galatians 5:4. These are strong words of warning. Once you start depending on your own merits and efforts to deserve God's favor, you are back under the system of the law. You are cut off from Christ and have fallen from the place of having His unmerited favor work in your life. Don't misunderstand me. Jesus is still with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you, according to Hebrews 13:5. But by depending on your self-efforts, you effectively cut off His unmerited favor in your life. So what do I mean when I say, without us, He will not? Well, Jesus is a gentleman. He will not force His unmerited favor and success down your throat. He needs you to allow Him to work in your life. He waits patiently for you to trust Him. He waits patiently for you to depend on His unmerited favor. The way Joseph trusted and depended wholly on the Lord's presence until His manifested presence took over, and His glory radiated from everything that Joseph touched. Beloved, let's learn quickly that without Jesus, we cannot succeed. And if we choose not to respond to His unmerited favor, He will not force it on us. God's unmerited favor is ever flowing toward us, and Jesus is waiting for us to come to the end of ourselves. He is waiting for you to stop struggling in your own attempts to somehow deserve His favor and just depend on Him. So in the areas that you are still depending on your own efforts to succeed, start resting in Jesus' unmerited favor and begin experiencing His manifested presence and glory upon everything you touch.